Hello, my dear viewers. It's good to be with you. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. By the way, have you seen where my phone is? I put it down somewhere around here, but I can't seem to find it. Oh dear, I've lost it. Where did I last see it? How terrible. Where could it be? Ah, here is my dear phone. I've found it. Today we're going to talk about the phone. I think each of you has experienced that panic and dread when you can't find your phone. Whether it's in your purse, your backpack, or somewhere at home. What does your phone mean to you? Try to answer this question for yourself, writing down at least 10 points, so that you can really reflect on this topic. Then turn this video back on. That way, we can explore it together. Let your own thoughts and feelings about your phone become the foundation for this reflection. The topic of phones came up in one of the stalker groups. Valeria from Kharkiv suggested that we discuss it, and we explored it together as a group. I thought it might be interesting for others as well. Our phone is like a pacifier for a baby. When a child loses their pacifier, the thing that soothes them, they start sucking on it again. And in the same way, when we lose our phone, we feel this emptiness inside as if we're missing something essential. And I would like us to approach this topic, as with many others, together, without judgment. We won't condemn the phone or say that it's awful and that we shouldn't use it. You already know that whatever is condemned is quickly forgotten or rejected by us. So we try to think without judgment here. So let's talk openly about our vital dependence on the phone. First of all, our attitude toward the phone is as if it were an object, as if it not plastic, not circuits, not microchips, but as if it were a living person. We even miss our phone. For example, when we have to sit in a meeting or participate in work somewhere, our hand instinctively reaches for the phone to pick it up. And when we unlock our phone, we dive with you into a kind of parallel world. A world that is nothing like the one that surrounds us. My phone is my little friend, my dear little friend whom I can call, who will come, who will brighten up my dull weekdays or the boring hours of my life. And my phone is incredibly responsive. Just a mere touch of a finger and immediately, with no delay, it reacts. We get a response, we are answered, and this responsiveness, it also gives us the opportunity to feel that I exist, in a certain sense. The very possession of this phone allows us to feel a sense of value as well. That is, it belongs to me. It is my property. And I perceive it perhaps the way a king perceives his jester. For example, when I open TikTok and there are funny videos, I watch them and laugh as if I have invited a court jester to entertain me. Or my phone, it helps me find what I need. It is my assistant. I place orders there, and it makes my life easier. And by being so actively involved in my life, it undoubtedly creates attachment and dependence. So you see, up until now, I've been thinking of my phone as my servant. It entertains me at times, and at other times it helps me. But at the same time, this very servant, who was once my slave, ends up enslaving me as well. My complete dependence on something makes me, in essence, its captive. Both a slave owner and a slave, in a way. And using the example of the phone, you can look at any kind of dependency. They are all based on exactly the same principles. I think you've seen videos where a mother takes a phone away from her child and the child throws a tantrum demanding the phone back. This shows that a dominant focus has formed in the child's psyche. And we would also throw a tantrum at someone who took our phone away from us. But as you already know, the tantrum first forms inside us. In other words, we feel pressure from this dominant focus. That is, the very first time we picked up a phone, the first time we wove it into our lives, we already created a dominant focus. We created a dependency. And the modern phone, as if it seamlessly weaves itself into our intricate neural networks, into our fundamental reflex arcs, and becomes an utterly inseparable part of us. So, what is it about the phone? And as I mentioned before, I would prefer not judgment, but reflecting on what precisely happens with the phone, specifically when we consciously open it, especially to access various social media platforms, we often experience a sense of power and influence over the individuals who choose to post something there, sharing their thoughts and experiences. After all, I am the one who decides whether to like something or to dislike it. It's like in ancient Rome, when you could decide whether to execute or pardon, to kill or to let someone live. And in this way, we are all a bit like Caesar, giving likes or dislikes. From the height of our own perception, we either judge this person, ignore them, or bestow our attention upon them. For many people, giving likes is actually a significant issue. And if you look at the number of views compared to the number of likes, you can see what percentage of people are generous with their likes. And the rest treat their likes as something extremely valuable. In other words, you have to really entertain me and impress me for me to give you one. My like. And this sense of omnipotence, of grandeur, arises when we scroll through social media and look at other people. We can think whatever we want about these people and their posts. We can easily devalue, pass judgment, or criticize. And when a person criticizes, they don't stop to think whether they could even create something like that themselves. And this feeling of grandeur that our phone truly gives us is what creates our dependency. When we look at the vast world through our phone and on our screens, we can especially vividly feel what it means to look at the world subjectively and objectively. So when we carefully observe and look at an individual person, it's important for us to understand that in a person's psyche, the whole world exists inside them. In other words, it's not that they exist in the world, but rather the world exists in their consciousness. It's as if I am so vast that I can contain all of this within myself. And the world, a small world, fits right into my phone. And when I step out of subjectivity, my perception of the world changes in an opposite way. I become small and the world becomes large. And in fact, looking at a phone creates exactly this sensation. I am big, and what is happening there is small. It's like watching a blogger on your phone, for example, watching their videos and then meeting them in real life. And when I look at him on my phone, it's as if I'm bigger than he is and he has entered my life. But when I meet him in person, I perceive him in a completely different way. This difference in perception between my subjective view and how I perceive things in reality is significant. It reveals to us our problem with perception, something many of you experience when you wake up. I think we immediately grab our phones as if we are the masters of the world, as if we control the world through our phones. We control events through our phones. And we often have a particular attitude toward these events, expressing our opinions about them. And this experience of occurrences gives us the feeling that we are somehow actively participating in them, as if we are personally involved. The more a person is stuck at previous stages of development, the harder it is for them to separate themselves from events. To see events as separate from themselves and themselves as separate from the events, if they have an emotional reaction to something, it's as if they draw it into their inner world and it becomes part of their root system. And this is the moment of awakening when we encounter ourselves because we are meeting reality. For us, it can be an unbearable moment to find ourselves in this reality, an unbearable experience of meeting ourselves. And then the phone becomes an escape from reality. It's as if we abandon ourselves, the one who is experiencing certain feelings and emotions. And instead of looking deeply within ourselves, we often choose to perceive and validate our own personal existence by observing and scrutinizing the life experiences of someone else. In the same way, when we go to bed with our phones, watching or scrolling through something. And so, instead of self-reflection, instead of thinking over what happened to me during the day or analyzing and drawing conclusions, I am once again running away from myself. So, we could say that when the phone appeared, we gained a door to Narnia, a parallel world. A place I can always open and escape to if I don't like it here. As I mentioned, we don't judge others or ourselves. And this escape from reality, it's not something pathological. We actually need these escapes, but the key point is how many times we run away and how often we do it. If a person lives in their phone just as one can live in books, in computer games, or in any other addiction, then that person is not participating in their own life. In other words, they are like a cloud, like a phantom floating above, and they do not reflect on their real self, but instead discover themselves only through reacting to the external world. For example, when we look at something on our phone, scrolling through posts, making judgments, or watching videos about other people, sometimes we don't even notice the authors. We simply react to the video. It's as if courtiers have prepared an entertainment program for me or written something for my amusement. In other words, we rarely see the person who is writing this because we have already drawn it into the world of ourselves. And in doing so, we obliterate the other person and become nothing more than passive consumers. Taking in what happens without giving anything in return? So, isn't that a form of disrespect or ingratitude? And when I judge someone while looking at them through my phone, in that moment, I am not connected to my real self. I am, so to speak, a Holy Spirit, a kind of cloud that can find faults, say how things should be done better, attack, criticize, or even completely devalue someone in thoughts or in comments. And at the same time, in that moment, I am not answering the question, who am I really? What am I truly like? So you see, this is a kind of virtual way of looking at reality through a small window onto reality. It gives us the opportunity not to identify with ourselves, but to identify with some imagined character. And for example, when some author writes something and we don't like it, let's say, we don't ask ourselves who wrote it. We perceive it simply as information for ourselves. Do I agree with it or not? To condemn or to pardon? To condemn or to pardon? So our phone becomes an escape. And the more time we spend there, the more we lose contact with ourselves. I've observed once in the theater, I love going to the theater, and how people watch a play. For about 15 to 20 minutes, they watch it, and then they start looking at their phones, as if there's something important or interesting there, something absolutely essential that they have to check. So this rapid scrolling, this clip-like consumption of content makes it impossible for us to go deeper and to sustain attention for longer stories. It's as if we get tired. Our psyche becomes like these thin, frail little arms that can only push very light, barbell, because we're not used to thinking in a sustained, extended way. Some people even say, make your videos shorter and simpler, write your posts shorter and simpler too. Because long videos and posts immediately reveal our inability to follow the author's train of thought for an extended period. In other words, I reveal my own inadequacy, and I ask the author to do things in a way that doesn't expose it. Do it so that the content you create is tailored to me, so that it matches my intellectual capabilities. This constant phone use not only undermines our thinking, but also our ability to feel emotions. We can't handle emotions, for example, a play that lasts an hour and a half. We have grown accustomed to fast-changing images, where we don't need to follow a storyline and don't need to engage or think deeply. And in this way, we regress, because we become more like children than adults. Children who flip through a book looking for the pictures. The meaning is too complicated for us. And since my phone offers it to me this way, it seems normal to me. It feels natural to me. We escape into our phones not only at the theater or even in movie theaters, in the movie theater. And we can escape there when we're sitting with company and, for example, we're bored or uninterested. As I said, we won't be able to stop escaping. But when we do, at least try to ask ourselves, what am I running from right now? What inner discomfort am I avoiding, whether it's in the morning with my phone, in the evening at the theater, or when I'm visiting someone? In other words, something is happening that feels unbearable to me, and instead of delving into it and understanding it, I escape into my phone. In fact, I abandon my real self and escape into a version of myself where there is no one experiencing this discomfort. When a person encounters something unbearable, for example, I'm sitting in the theater and I want to reach for my phone, it's essentially the same as leaving, by the way, to leave. But when I actually get up and leave, I expose myself, I reveal that I can't handle it. A lengthy narration. Or, for example, when I'm a guest somewhere and I feel bored or uninterested, I also reveal myself when I get up and leave. But here, it's as if I managed to avoid it without actually running away. So formally, I haven't left, but informally, I'm already gone. That's exactly why it irritates us when we're talking to someone and they are looking at something on their phone. We realize that they're no longer really with us. They're somewhere in a different parallel world. And this act of asking the question, what am I running from right now? To develop awareness and uncover what we often hide from ourselves. I've noticed in myself how I escape into my phone, for example, when I'm watching movies and the experience becomes unbearable, when certain emotions arise that I don't want to face. And in fact, this escape into the phone creates a kind of dummy in a person, a dummy with shallow feelings, shallow thoughts, and a dummy that isn't truly alive. That is, it's as if he lives and breathes, but at the same time, he doesn't participate. He participates in this life only in virtual reality. And learning not to take everything that's published at face value is also important, because you know how it is. A blogger wakes up at 8 in the morning, washes their hair, puts on makeup, brushes their teeth, and has breakfast. And then they get back into bed with their phone and say, I just woke up. And you think, my God, that's what they look like when they wake up, not like me. So you see, this creates the illusion of some kind of perfect life. There are actually very few people who tell truthful stories about themselves. And this pull toward a doll-like world, toward perfection, it reinforces our idealized image of a character, making it seem like that's how things can be. So you see, our sense of what is real and what is made up becomes completely distorted. We lose the ability to distinguish between fiction and reality. It's as if what's on the phone is reality and what's in real life isn't. And this constant stream of quick images makes real life seem boring. Life can't possibly provide us with such rapid changes, can it? With constantly shifting images. And this boredom because we're not being entertained by a quick succession of images, leads to a general devaluation of life itself. In other words, a person stops appreciating the quality of life and becomes like a launched ball just flying through with events flashing by. He doesn't actually live it, doesn't participate in it emotionally, but it's as if it irritates his eyes, creating a sense of a life that's full. Many people say they escape from emptiness into their phones. Well, I want to state with confidence that there is no such thing as true emptiness within us. Emptiness arises only when there is something we don't want to face. In other words, wherever there is something I don't want to face, a screen or a wall appears. So it turns out that at some point a person doesn't want to face anything within themselves. And then comes the feeling that when you look inside, there's emptiness, there's nothing there. When a person spends their life on the phone, it's important to understand that you are currently learning about life. I'm not saying you shouldn't be on your phone. What I'm saying is that we need to call things by their proper names. You're no longer participating in life, you're in a kind of life training. In other words, life goes on, but you've drifted off into a kind of slumber, a narcotic sleep, where you dream dreams. It all happens as if in a dream, because I'm not really participating in it. And with the help of our phones, we create this sense of I exist, but on a very low quality level. It's like using a tennis racket to keep a ball from falling. In the same way, it's as if we're using our phones to keep our consciousness afloat so we don't fall inward into ourselves. So on the one hand, something is happening. On the one hand, I'm experiencing something, but these experiences aren't really about me, not about my own life. You can explore yourself in any way you like. What's important here is being in touch with your feelings, being in touch with your thoughts, and calling things by their proper names. In fact, our relationship with the phone can become a wonderful way to explore and get to know ourselves. And many people think that self-discovery is about reading books or attending seminars. Yes, that's important too. But it's just as important to practice mindfulness, to avoid becoming like a robot or a machine that acts automatically, where a person no longer makes conscious choices. Do I choose to grab my phone and look at it first thing in the morning? And if you ask yourself this question, then you might hear inside yourself, no, you're not choosing. It's a reflex, it's automatic behavior, actions that happen beyond your conscious will. In other words, it's as if you're no longer making decisions about your own life. Reflexive habits are making those decisions for you. And if you bring awareness to your relationship with your phone, you can learn and understand a lot about yourself. I hope this video will serve as a tool for you in your journey of self-discovery. I'd like to remind you that the School of Emotions will take place on June 7th and June 14th. In fact, our phones tend to flatten our emotions. We become less able to tolerate emotional intensity. How much emotional tension we can withstand, our determination depends on this, how much pressure we can handle, whether we can maintain discipline, whether we can hold ourselves together in conflict situations, and whether we can remain calm, diplomatically, even when having conversations in challenging situations. All of this depends on our emotional responses, and this is exactly what we will be exploring at the School of Emotions. As always, I'd like to ask you to share your story in the comments, your relationship with your phone. Or perhaps add to this video with your own thoughts, reminding you that we are learning to be teachers for one another. I will also read your comments. And perhaps my own understanding of my relationship with the phone will also broaden. I'll say goodbye for now. See you next time.